The first white men to come through the south of New Guinea were scientists sent there by the Dutch government. That was in April 1907. Long before that, however, in 1770, the English explorer James Cook and his crew tried unsuccessfully to get there. For a long time, their failure discouraged others from attempting to reach this area at the end of the world. It wasn't long before these scientists came into contact with the Asmat, a tribe of headhunters. Nobody could understand their language, but an even greater difficulty was finding local equipment bearers willing to accompany them. The Asmat were terrifying. Their neighbors, the Mimikans, called them We Mana We, the men who eat men. Rufinus is 20 years old. He has no experience of war or bloody attacks, since for 40 years no headhunting has taken place on Asmat territory. In order for us to live, others had to die. That's how it was here, says his grandfather Ambrose. In a few days, Rufinus will marry Ponam, his fiancée. Ambrose wants this wedding to serve as an occasion for his grandson to renew his ties with some of the traditions of his people. The first test for Rufinus will be to capture and kill a cassowary, a large land bird that lives alone in the depths of the jungle. If he succeeds, the future groom will have proved to everyone that he is a skilled hunter capable of managing on his own as the head of his family. In the meantime, his grandfather and his father have decided to go along and help him. The Asmat dread being face to face with the cassowary. Ambrose had that unfortunate experience once. One day, a huge male jumped on him and slashed him with his claws. Had his father not intervened with his bow and arrow, Ambrose might not be here today. Fortunately, these encounters are rare. Cassowaries only travel after nightfall. During the day, when they rest, the jungle is too thick to see them. The hunters, therefore, have no other choice but to look for their tracks and make traps to capture them. Ambrose says that there is lots of food here, and so the bird will come back. Rufinus must learn and remember every one of these gestures. His ancestors did the same before him. Later, he will have to pass this knowledge on to his children and his grandchildren.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Biwar Laut is one of the largest villages on Asmat territory. More than 600 people live here. In the past, when they had to protect themselves from enemy attacks, small groups of Asmat would settle at the edge of the water. At low tide, these rivers would dry up quickly, and it was impossible for the enemy to get through the mud. At high tide, it was easy to anticipate attacks and block the river by throwing tree trunks into it. Today, the inhabitants of Biwar Laut live in peace with their neighbors. The village appears to be deserted, but only because they are all busy working together. All the men and even the young boys are building a common house, the Jehu. They have put all their energy into this 80-meter-long building. It's almost finished, and it is a great event since Biwar Laut has not built a Jehu for 20 years. Two other very old Jehu already exist in Biwar Laut. Rufinus goes to one of them, but he has never built one with his own hands. Sometimes he believes that what the elders say is still possible, since if a new Jehu can be built, why can't the Asmat live as they did in the past? The nipa palm tree is used for building the Jehu. Its trunk is made with the frame. The bark becomes the floor, and the roof consists of the leaves woven into large sheets. Each family has to supply a strictly calculated, precise number of woven sheets, just enough to cover the part of the Jehu that they are going to occupy, which is their own personal area.
Ada rasanya jenuh, biru. Pas biru.
Ayo, sama bawa saya orang bawa cincin kantor. Ayuan bapak jum. Jual jual macam. Alga dalam baca mandi biarau. Yokar bayum mandi. Apa tu orang yokar?
The chief repeats and repeats. A rebirth is taking place here and now in this new home. the Indonesian government has forbidden their construction since 1964. Some have even been burned down. Today, it has made an about-face, meaning that perhaps the Asmat can once again be themselves. The most important outside influence in Asmat life was the arrival of Catholic missionaries in the 1930s. They were the first to appear after the war, and their presence here was always greater than the Dutch or Indonesian civil servants. They were also the first to become familiar with the many Asmat languages. They built dispensaries and schools and trained catechism instructors. However, they had a difficult time convincing children to give up their nomadic lives and not to follow their parents into the jungle looking for food. They nevertheless succeeded in imposing certain Christian principles and exchanging them for Asmat customs which they considered barbarian. They persuaded the men to stop wearing nose decorations, to forbid sexual promiscuity and polygamy, and most importantly, they struggled against the practice of headhunting. Although they left their mark, very few Asmat became Catholic, and those who did not remain so for long. Today, the only sacred site for the Asmat is the Jeu, this sanctuary where the world of the living touches that of the dead.
bisin bertem baru betlap mo. Sarang masuk.
Boy siakat.
Nah, wow.
Jakap jam
Sama
nak.
film mo.
Bara ini bara ini terpilih mana.
Awak tak mampu mo baru.
Tonight, Ponam's family is paying a visit to Rufinus's parents to discuss the gifts the young man must offer for the wedding. Everyone knows each other already, but the official introduction is a symbolic and impressive ritual for the future couple. The guests arrive, guided by torches, which they blend together in their host's home. Finally, Ponam's mother raises the crucial question. This is always the wife's role, and she takes it very seriously. In Asmat culture, the women exercise the greater part of the social pressure. The men are strong, even aggressive, and if they're not, they'll be scolded by their wives. After some hard bargaining, they reach agreement at last. Rufinus must offer 3 woven sacks of parrot feathers, necklaces made of dog's teeth, couscous skins to make headdresses, and 2 knives made of cassowary bone.
Capin ni makat ng takor.
Hepin mo ba siya naman? Tsoko ya yan.
Si maramam tapit mo daw no.
Si maramam na to. Ama na pisar naman sa piningbiyaw. Ambes na yan bisa ay opal.
Cara ma asa vimera.
Tu nam jan turisnya nak bawa ambis deh.
To seal their union, the family shares segu, the Asmat symbolic food which has enabled an entire people to survive for centuries. It's Rufinus's job to distribute it. For a long time, this land was nothing more than a vast white space on Western maps. And yet, the Asmat have always lived here in southwestern New Guinea, the second largest island in the world. Recently, the people of Irian Jaya have received permission from the Indonesian government to give their land a name with which they can identify: Western Papua. Asmat territory has always been inaccessible because it is protected by very high mountains to the north and by the Arafura Sea to the south, a dangerous sea with sudden terrifying storms. This is why they have been able to preserve their culture. At the beginning of the 21st century, it is one of the last unexplored regions of the globe. The Asmat have always survived without cultivating the soil. They hunt, gather food, and fish. The hot, humid climate, however, doesn't permit them to store anything, and so the search for food is a daily activity. The women do the fishing. The men are here just to protect them. Although the Asmat are no longer threatened by surprise attacks, they have kept their traditional distribution of tasks. The men defend the territory, while the women are responsible for the family's sustenance. Like all Asmat villages, Biwar Laut is muddy because the very flat land deposits brine at high tide, which penetrates up to 100 kilometers inside the earth. That's why the roads are lined with poles and the houses built on stakes. The Asmat build large houses, big enough for entire families. Rufinus lives in his father's house, along with his sister and her family, his brother and his mother. Everyone works together as well. Rufinus has his meals here, but he spends most of his time in the Jeu, where he sleeps, along with the other bachelors. Once he's married, he will live with his wife's family. Nobody here lives alone. There's always someone to watch the children and the sick when the women leave for the ocean or the jungle. Thus, all food is shared. The group takes precedence over the individual in Asmat life. What counts is the family link. The real father of a young boy is his maternal uncle, because a child is considered to be the descendant of his mother. Rufinus has followed his uncle everywhere, ever since he was a child. He learned everything from him and thus owes him everything. Thanks to his uncle, Rufinus learned to find food in the jungle, to avoid traps, and to find the tree of life, the Sago Palm. For centuries, the Asmat have taken the base of their diet from the heart of this tree, a very nourishing starch, the sago. Once the tree is felled, the men remove the stringy marrow in the trunk. Then they knead it with water to remove the starch. The liquid, which is filtered through the tree's bark, and a whitish flour fall to the bottom. Then the water is removed, leaving the compacted starch. It's hard work, but 50 kilograms of flour can be obtained in half a day with just one tree, making it more than worthwhile. and sago palms are inexhaustible. Ambrose, Rufinus's grandfather, lives further up the river, outside of the village.
Awo, nam sanam batak. Asanam batakin.
Rufinus knows that for his grandfather, it is very important that he be married according to tradition, that he offer the ritual presents and kill a cassowary. Nevertheless, it can never compensate for what the Asmat have lost. Ambrose claims that the ancestors are furious with them. Their deaths are no longer avenged because the men don't go headhunting anymore. Perhaps the ancestors will stop the sago palms from growing. Ambrose says that the Asmat were headhunters once, but today, for him, they are nothing. And yet the Asmat are still here. Children are born, Rufinus is getting married, life goes on. If he's going to have a chance of killing a cassowary, Rufinus must go around the trap and stay undercover. The high grass protects him. Even as a prisoner, the bird is very dangerous. If it's surprised, it could escape and attack. The Asmat have always identified themselves with the cassowary. In the past, when they left to go headhunting, the men would draw its footprint on the soles of their feet, their calves, and their thighs. They have always tried to capture the bird's speed and strength. They used to sculpt the great bird in wood for their boats and their axes to become part of it symbolically. The young animal's feathers are not black yet, although it is already adult size and weighs more than 30 kilograms. Sculpture has always been the Asmat's main activity. All the men can carve bowls, oars, or prows for their boats. Only a few ritual objects require a specialist because they are linked to the cult of the dead. These artists enjoy the prestige once reserved for the greatest headhunters. In Asmat society, where there is no real hierarchy, being a sculptor enables the artist to exercise a political function. And yet these men are not paid for their work. The person who commissions the sculpture simply feeds the artist while the work is being carried out. 3 objects play a decisive role in Asmat culture. They must compensate for and appease the spirits. That is why they are not considered to be works of art, but religious objects. These objects are the Beige, the shield, and the drum. The most spectacular of the 3 sculptures is the Beige, a mast which can be as high as 5 meters, carved from the trunk of a mangrove. Searching for this tree is a ritual, observing the same rules as headhunting. Once the trunk is chosen, it is felled, its branches and roots removed, and the bark stripped off. Then it is carefully carried to the boat by the men who are in ritual attire for the occasion. The tree is a new spirit, a source of trouble. The women of the village don't want it. They simulate an attack to demonstrate their discontent. The trunk, however, is finally accepted and officially welcomed. The Beige is the concrete representation of men who have recently died. No death is considered natural in Asmat culture. The dead must be avenged. In the past, the Beige was associated with headhunting. After raising the mast, the men would leave on their raid. The Beige was not a work of art, but a promise made to the dead. It was used to convince the spirits of these men that they could leave in peace for Safan, the realm of the soul. The Beige is a ritualistic pirogue which carries the dead and accompanies them on their final voyage. The cassowary Rufinus killed this morning must now be cut up. Once again, Ambrose is there to guide him. No part of the animal must be thrown out. From the feathers to the bones, everything is used. There is a special ritualistic manner of cutting the bird up, handed down to man by Biwar Laut, one of the Asmat ancestors. The legend says that Biwar Laut was the first man to have practiced headhunting. He killed his brother at his brother's request, and suddenly the head began to speak. It guided Biwar Laut, indicating each and every step involved in cutting up a man. Today, this ritual is still used, but for cutting up a cassowary. The animal must be cut into small pieces so that everyone can have some. Rufinus's family and that of his fiancée will share the breast. The young man will get the heart, which will bring him luck in future hunts. But what is most important for Rufinus is receiving the thigh bone, which Ambrose hands to him. He will learn how to use it to carve a knife for himself. In addition to the cassowary, another equally mythical animal, the Couscous, is greatly sought after. Behind the natural discretion of this small marsupial lies many legends. Borpich, the ancestor who founded the Asmat people, cheated on his wife one day. He beat his young mistress so that she would keep their secret. The girl escaped the angry Borpich, preferring to climb to the mountaintop and never come down. She transformed herself into a Couscous and decided to sleep among the trees during the day and go out looking for food at night. For Rufinus, hunting the Couscous is still another symbolic act. The animal eats fruit from the trees to survive, just as the men used to eat human heads. This is why the Asmat make a headdress, which they almost always keep with them from the animal's thick fur. Rufinus's wedding is going to take place in the next few hours. It's time for Ponam's parents to give her some final advice and recommendations. In everyday life, an Asmat woman has the power to impose decent behavior on her husband. If he commits an error, Custom authorizes her to make it known throughout the village. The Asmats say that life comes from the woman's stomach, just as flower comes from the heart of the sago palm. The woman and the sago palm are both instrumental in perpetuating the race. In a country with no agriculture or commerce, where children are the principal wealth of a family, women have a great deal of authority. Asmat country is a land without rocks. Previous generations had to be inventive in creating tools. The men sculpt with seashells, and the knives made of cassowary bone are precious objects because they are sharp. Today, Rufinus's uncle is helping him to make his first knife. The young man's job is to watch and then to imitate him. This is why the Jiu is so important to the Asmat. It has always been a school of life for young men. The sheath is woven and then decorated with cassowary feathers to give it, as they say, the power to cut the wind like the great bird running at full speed. For Rufinus, knowing how to carry his knife is a sign that his peers respect him. In the past, a man could not show such a weapon unless he had killed one of his own kind. It was proof that he was a great headhunter. Although men no longer kill other men here, it remains a key moment in the life of a young Asmat. Honam and her family live near the sea at the mouth of the river. A 2-hour boat ride separates them from Biwar Laut. Rufinus's family, escorted by other boats, will arrive in great numbers and be guided to the village. Meanwhile, Honam is accompanied by her father and mother, proving that they are not opposed to the marriage and that they do not insist on keeping their daughter. The men paint their faces in white, red, and black. The oldest among them wear human bones or shells in their noses. All of them wear cockatoo feathers in their hair. This entire ritual is supposed to give them the courage to conquer and to terrify the enemy. The warriors sing quietly and sometimes shout. They conjure up their ancestors, asking them for strength and support. This is the way the Asmat used to leave for war and for their murderous, bloody raids when they were still headhunters. Today, the oars cut through the waves for a happy occasion. Instead of hate, there is a contained joy and undoubtedly a lot of emotion for Rufinus, the young Asmat. The men make the same time-honored gestures. They resemble their ancestors. It was they who a long time ago organized the world. This world order represents the Asmat's collective memory. Nevertheless, one day this order was overturned. Can one honestly say that nothing has changed when headhunting has disappeared? The Asmat collect sago as they've always done, and they still paint their bodies white. Even more importantly, they are still sculptors. For the Asmat, some of these sculptures were the eyes of their ancestors and of their dead. Without headhunting, they are merely works of art now. Trade in them has perhaps saved this people from being forgotten, but is the battle totally won? The marriage of Rufinus and Ponam remind each of them that they are part of a group, the Asmat. Now, Ambrose says, our two families are united like the roots of the bamboo and the coconut palm. Rufinus's wife is pregnant. Their child will grow up on Asmat territory, and even if it does not experience what now belongs to the past, at least it will learn about it, just as Rufinus did, from the mouths of those who have lived it.